Now to tonight's special report, a look at the government's plans for marine parks that conservationists say will lead to an unprecedented scaling back of protections. Marine parks are the national parks of our oceans. There are 58 around the country, covering 3.3 million square kilometres, an area about the size of India. Most were set up by the Gillard government in 2012, but were suspended under Tony Abbott, who ordered a review of the system. Now draft plans for 44 of the parks have been released, cutting back high-scale protections and allowing for more commercial and recreational fishing. Tonight's story takes us from one side of the country to the other. We begin in Gillard Bay off the West Australian coast with reporter Louisa Rebgetz.
The annual migration of humpback whales off the West Australian coast is a natural wonder.
When the whale surfaces, you'll see the exhalation of its breath.
About 30,000 move down the coast to feed in Antarctic waters over summer, and today they're turning it on for tourists in Gillard Bay.
Great opportunity for us to show the whales to the public, but it's a necessity for them. It's a sheltered area for them to rest.
This has been absolutely incredible. Who knew that we would have been able to interact with them so much throughout the day?
Gillard Bay is part of Australia's network of marine parks. Under the 2012 model, they're divided into green national parks with full conservation protection. They make up 36% of the park network. Yellow, where fishing is allowed as long as the sea floor isn't harmed, and blue, that allow for specific commercial activities. Under new draft plans, the number of green zones are almost halved and yellow zones doubled.
When we get them operational, we'll have one of the largest areas of protection in no-take zones in the world.
But the new plans have outraged environmentalists.
We're very concerned that Australia's marine parks are proposed to have half of their sanctuary zone protection removed.
Conservationist Adrian Mader has been working in Gillard Bay for more than a decade. He's furious that plans to make certain areas off limits to fishing have been scrapped.
Sort of inexplicable that the government would propose getting rid of the most meaningful protection in our bay.
Some of the proposals that are being put forward now in terms of locking people out of areas and having no impact in areas have huge consequences for local communities.
There are many industries who do support the changes. Commercial tuna fishing is one of them. Operators say if the 2012 plans are enforced, it'll be the death of the entire industry in Australia. On the other side of the country, this 15-tonne catch is fresh from the Coral Sea and is being unloaded on Queensland's Sunshine Coast. It's the biggest wild-caught operation in Australia.
Basically, it's just a hook and line fishery.
So how many hooks are here and how many are sent out at once?
Okay, we've got about 3,000 or 4,000 here, but generally speaking, we set a couple of thousand hooks a day.
The bulk of the catch will be exported to the United States and Japan.
That's just got no fat, but very nice colour, very nice freshness. So like a top-grade sashimi fish.
Owner Parvo Walker says he'll be out of business if green zones in the Coral Sea aren't scaled back.
We have gold standard, world standard, sustainable fisheries here that we are closing for who? Closing for some foreign NGOs.
We will have reduced commercial fishing in selected areas where we think the conservation values are so high that we need to protect them from any extraction. And that's an area about the size of Victoria.
The Coral Sea, which extends beyond the Great Barrier Reef, is also important to tourism. Dive operators here are worried what the changes will do to popular reefs such as Holmes and Flinders.
None of these reefs have been offered any real protection. There's an amount of protection at Osprey Reef, which is an iconic reef, but the other reefs have, for the most part, have been left exposed to extractive practices.
Tourism operators around the country say there's a lot at stake.
These amazing creatures aren't only extraordinary to watch, but they're worth big bucks. They contribute to Australia's marine tourism industry, which is worth more than $28 billion.
We've put out a set of plans where we've tried to reduce both the economic impact but also the social impact of marine parks, and I'm keen to hear whether we've got it right.
The consultation phase ends this week. Louisa Rebgetz, ABC News.